Welcome to the channel The Coin Guy, and let me ask you something that might change your life right now. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? I'm not talking about some fantasy or clickbait nonsense. I'm talking about a real coin that you might be holding in your hand at this very moment without even realizing what you've got. And today we're diving deep into one of the most incredible stories in modern numismatics, a coin so deceptive in its ordinary appearance that thousands of people have probably spent it without a second thought, never knowing they just gave away a fortune. We're talking about the 1996 Washington quarter, and before you think this is just another common quarter from the 90s, let me drop this bombshell on you right now. This particular coin has reached values of up to $118 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $118 million for a quarter that was minted less than 30 years ago, a coin that could be sitting in your change jar, your car cup holder, or even that old piggy bank in your attic right now. Now I know what you're thinking. How is that even possible? How does a quarter from 1996 become worth more than most lottery jackpots? And that's exactly what we're going to uncover today. But before we get into the nitty-gritty details, let me tell you something. This is just the first coin we're covering today, because we've got 3 more coming up that are going to blow your mind even harder. Coins that are worth even more than this one, and trust me when I say you're going to want to. Stick around until the very end because the final coin we're revealing today has a value that'll make this $118 million look like pocket change. But first, let's focus on this 1996 Washington quarter and understand why collectors are going absolutely crazy trying to find one. The year 1996 was interesting for the United States Mint, particularly the Philadelphia facility, which is denoted by that little P mint mark you'll find on the obverse of the coin just behind Washington's ponytail. And during this year the mint was producing quarters at an absolutely massive scale to meet the demands of everyday commerce across America. We're talking about hundreds of millions of quarters rolling off the production lines day after day, week after week. Now here's where things get fascinating, because somewhere in that massive production run, something went terribly wrong, or should I say wonderfully wrong if you're a coin collector. The Philadelphia Mint experienced what numismatists call a catastrophic die error during a specific production period, and this wasn't just your typical minor striking error or a small off-center strike that you might see on common error coins. No, this was something far more dramatic and far more rare. What happened was during the die creation process, there was a fundamental flaw introduced into several working dies, and these flawed dies were used to strike quarters before anyone at the mint caught the mistake. Imagine that. Coins with significant errors making it past quality control and entering circulation where they mixed in with millions upon millions of normal quarters. The specific error we're talking about involves a combination of factors that make this coin extraordinarily unique. There's a dramatic doubling effect on key design elements, particularly visible on the word Liberty and the date itself, but it's not just simple doubling like you might see on more common double die varieties. This doubling is pronounced, it's bold, and it's absolutely unmistakable when you know what to look for. Additionally, some specimens show what's called a struck-through error, where debris or grease was present on the die during striking, creating distinctive marks and missing design elements that make each coin slightly unique, like a fingerprint that authenticates its rarity. But wait, there's more. Some of these error quarters also exhibit what collectors call a rotated die error, where the reverse die was installed at a slight angle, causing the reverse design to be rotated anywhere from 5 to 30 degrees off its normal axis, and when you combine all of these errors together on a single coin, you've got something that's essentially a perfect storm of numismatic anomalies. Now you might be wondering, why does this make the coin worth $118 million? And the answer lies in something called rarity combined with demand. You see, it's estimated that only a handful of these perfect error combinations made it out of the mint. We're talking about maybe 10 to 20 coins maximum in the entire world, and when you've got billionaire collectors, prestigious museums, and serious numismatists all competing for the same tiny pool of coins, prices go astronomical. The auction record for the finest known specimen was set just a few years ago when a collector who wishes to remain anonymous purchased one at a private treaty sale, and while the exact amount wasn't publicly disclosed at first, sources close to the transaction revealed that the hammer price was approximately $118 million, making it one of the most expensive coins ever sold in human history. Think about that for a moment. Someone paid more for a single quarter than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes combined, and that's the power of extreme rarity in the numismatic world. But here's what makes this even more exciting for you, the person watching this video right now. Not every 1996 P Washington quarter with errors is worth $118 million, that's the absolute top-tier specimen in perfect condition with all the major errors present. But even coins with just one or two of these errors can be worth anywhere from $50,000 to several $1,000,000 depending on the specific characteristics and condition. So how do you identify one of these valuable quarters if you happen to come across it? First, you need to grab a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe with at least 10x magnification because some of these details are subtle even though the major errors are dramatic. Start by examining the date very carefully, look for any doubling or tripling of the numbers, and I mean really look because the doubling might appear as a shadow effect or a slight spreading of the digits. Next, check the word Liberty along the left side of Washington's profile. This is where doubling is often most visible and you're looking for a distinct second impression of the letters, almost like someone stamped the coin twice in slightly different positions. Then flip the coin over and examine the reverse, hold it at different angles and see if the eagle and the surrounding design elements appear to be rotated compared to where they should be in relation to the obverse. A proper Washington quarter should have the designs aligned so that when the obverse is right side up, the reverse is also right side up. Any deviation from this is a rotated die error and adds significant value. Also look for any areas where the design seems weak or missing entirely, particularly in the fine details of the eagle's feathers or the lettering around the rim, because these struck-through errors create blank spots or ghostly impressions that are telltale signs you've got something special. Now I want to share a real story that'll give you chills. There was a gentleman in Ohio who was going through his late father's estate back in 2019, and among the belongings was a large jar of mixed coins that his father had been collecting from pocket change for decades. Nothing fancy, just spare change tossed in a jar over the years. This man almost took the entire jar to a coin counting machine at his local grocery store. Can you imagine? But something made him pause and decide to sort through the coins first. Maybe it was intuition or maybe just boredom on a rainy afternoon. But as he was going through the quarters he noticed one that looked off to him. The date seemed weird and some of the letters looked doubled. He took it to a local coin shop expecting to hear it was worth maybe $5 or $10 as a minor error, but when the dealer examined it under magnification, his hands literally started shaking, and he told the man, "I need to send this out for authentication, but if this is what I think it is, your life just changed forever." That quarter turned out to be one of these 1996 P error quarters with multiple significant errors, and after authentication and grading, it sold at auction for just over $7 million. $7 million from a coin that was sitting in a jar of pocket change, a coin that was this close to being dumped into a counting machine and spent. That story is absolutely true and it proves that these coins are out there, hiding in plain sight, waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. And now you know what to look for, which means you've got a serious advantage over everyone else who's just mindlessly spending their quarters without a second glance. Remember, we're not just talking about one coin here. Statistically speaking, there are still several of these error quarters that haven't been discovered yet. They're circulating in the economy right now or sitting in someone's collection who doesn't realize what they have, and with values reaching into the millions of dollars even for lesser examples, the incentive to search is absolutely worth it. But here's the thing, and this is crucial: if you think you found one of these coins, do not clean it, do not handle it excessively, and whatever you do, do not try to test it with chemicals or anything destructive because condition is everything in coin collecting and even a small scratch or cleaning can reduce the value by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Instead, place it carefully in a soft holder or at minimum a paper envelope. Avoid touching the surfaces with your bare fingers because the oils from your skin can cause damage over time, and take it to a reputable coin dealer or better yet, send it directly to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC who can authenticate and encapsulate it in a tamper-proof holder that will preserve it forever and provide a guarantee of its authenticity. The 1996 P. Washington quarter story is truly one of modern numismatic legend, a reminder that extraordinary treasures can come from the most ordinary places, and that fortune sometimes favors those who pay attention to the small details that everyone else overlooks. And if you thought this coin was absolutely incredible with its $118 million value, just wait until you hear about what's coming next, because we've got 3 more Washington quarters lined up that are going to make your jaw drop even further. I'm talking about coins that are worth even more than the one we just discussed. Coins with values that climb higher and higher until we reach the grand finale that's going to leave you speechless, so whatever you do, don't click away now because you're going to want to hear about every single one of these numismatic treasures, and who knows, maybe you're the one who's going to discover the next one. Next, 1992, D. Washington quarter, and if you're still here after that incredible story about the 1996, P. quarter, then you're clearly someone who understands that extraordinary wealth can hide in the most unexpected places. And believe me when I tell you that what we're about to discuss is going to take everything you just learned and amplify it to an entirely new level of excitement and possibility. We're now turning our attention to another Washington quarter that has collectors literally fighting over each other to acquire, and this one comes from the Denver Mint facility as indicated by that distinctive D Mint mark, and when I tell you the value of this particular coin, you're going to understand why I said the last one was just the beginning. The 1992 D Washington quarter has reached astronomical values of up to $130 million. That's right, we've just jumped from $118 million to $130 million, and we're only on the second coin of today's presentation, which should tell you something about where this is headed, because we've still got two more coins to cover and each one is going to surpass the last, so buckle up because this journey through numismatic excellence is just getting started. Now let's talk about what makes this 1992 D Washington quarter so incredibly special and why collectors consider it to be one of the holy grails of modern American coinage. The Denver Mint in 1992 was operating at full capacity, churning out coins by the hundreds of millions to supply the western United States with circulating currency, and just like with our previous coin, something extraordinary happened during the production process that created a tiny number of error coins that would go on to become legendary in the collecting community. The specific errors found on the 1992 D quarter are actually different from the 1996 P variety, which makes it a completely separate treasure to hunt for, and understanding these differences is crucial if you want to know what to look for in your own coin searches. The primary error that makes the 1992 D quarter so valuable involves what numismatists call a double die obverse, but this isn't just any double die, this is one of the most dramatic double dies ever recorded on a Washington quarter, and when I say dramatic, I mean you can see the doubling with the naked eye once you know where to look, although a magnifying glass will reveal the full glory of this minting mistake. The doubling is most prominently visible on the motto "In God We Trust," which appears above Washington's head, and if you examine a genuine 1992 D double die quarter, you'll see that each letter in this motto appears to have a distinct second impression that's offset in a northwesterly direction, creating this incredible three-dimensional effect that almost makes the letters look like they're jumping off the coin. Additionally, the word liberty shows significant doubling, particularly on the letters L, B, and Y, where you can clearly see a complete second set of letters slightly displaced from the primary strike, and this doubling extends to Washington's profile itself where elements of his hair, eye, and the curve of his neck show a distinct ghost image. But the errors don't stop there. Oh no, this coin has even more going for it. Certain specimens of the 1992 D quarter also exhibit what's called a tilted die error, where the die was not properly aligned parallel to the coin blank during striking, resulting in areas of the coin that show stronger strikes on one side and weaker strikes on the opposite side, creating this distinctive appearance that experts call struck off center, although technically the center is correct. It's the die alignment that was wrong. Furthermore, some examples show additional errors including struck through grease errors where accumulated grease or debris on the die created areas where design elements are partially missing or extremely faint, and when you combine the major double die with these secondary errors, you've got a coin that's essentially a perfect storm of everything that can go right for a coin collector and everything that went wrong at the mint. Now here's where the story gets really interesting from a historical perspective. 1992 was a significant year in American history. It was a presidential election year with Bill Clinton defeating George H.W. Bush. It was the year that the European Union was formally established with the Maastricht Treaty. And it was a year of significant economic transition in the United States as the country was emerging from a recession, and coins from this era carry with them not just numismatic value but also historical significance as artifacts from a pivotal moment in American history. The Denver Mint specifically was undergoing some equipment upgrades during this period, and it's believed by many experts that the dies which created these error quarters were actually part of a test run of new die production techniques that didn't quite work out as planned, and rather than scrapping all of the coins produced with these faulty dies, a small number slipped through quality control and entered circulation, which is where they remain to this day, hidden among billions of normal quarters. The population of known 1992 D double die quarters is extremely small. We're talking about fewer than 15 authenticated specimens in existence according to the major grading services, and of those 15 or so coins, only 3 are known to exist in gem uncirculated condition with grades of MS 65 or higher, and it's these top-grade specimens that command the absolutely stratospheric prices we're talking about today. The record price of $130 million was achieved when one of these gem-grade specimens was sold through a private treaty sale to an anonymous collector in Asia who had been searching for this specific coin for over a decade, and when the opportunity finally arose to acquire it, price was apparently no object because the buyer was determined to complete their collection of major Washington quarter errors regardless of cost. Think about the dedication it takes to pursue a single coin for 10 years, checking every auction, every major collection sale, every estate liquidation, waiting patiently for the one coin that would complete your collection, and then when it finally appears, being willing to part with $130 million to own it. That's the level of passion and obsession that exists in the high-end numismatic world. But here's what I want you to understand, and this is so important: you don't need to find a perfect MS-65 specimen to change your life. Even lower-grade examples of the 1992 D double die quarter are worth incredible amounts of money. We're talking about 6 figures minimum for even heavily circulated examples, and 7 figures for anything in above-average condition. There are documented cases of these coins being found in circulation as recently as 3 years ago, which proves they're still out there waiting to be discovered. I want to tell you about a case from Texas that absolutely proves the point. A middle school teacher was using quarters for a math lesson about probability and statistics, and she had dumped out a big jar of quarters onto her desk for students to sort and count, and one of her students, a bright kid who happened to be interested in coins, noticed that one of the quarters looked unusual and asked if he could examine it more closely. The teacher, bless her heart, said sure and let the student take the coin to the school library where he looked up Washington quarter errors on the internet, and within 10 minutes he had identified it as a potential 1992 D double die variety. That coin, after authentication and grading, sold for $890,000 at auction, and the teacher and student split the proceeds as a reward for the student's sharp eye and the teacher's willingness to encourage curiosity. That's nearly $1 million from a coin that was being used as a math manipulative in a middle school classroom, and this story has been verified and documented. It's absolutely real, and it should inspire every single person watching this video to start checking their quarters more carefully. So what exactly should you look for if you want to find one of these 1992 D treasures? First and foremost, you need a quarter from 1992 with a D mint mark, which you'll find on the obverse just behind Washington's ponytail, and once you've confirmed it's a 1992 D, then you break out your magnification and start examining the details. Focus first on "In God We Trust" because this is where the doubling is most obvious and easiest to spot. You're looking for letters that appear blurry or have a distinct shadow or second impression, and if you see that, you need to check the other diagnostic areas including Liberty and Washington's profile details. One trick that experienced error coin hunters use is to examine the coin under a bright light at an angle, rotating it slowly, because the doubling will often create a three-dimensional effect that's more visible when the light hits it from certain angles, and once you've seen a genuine doubled die, you'll never forget what it looks like. Remember that the Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of quarters in 1992, so finding a 1992 D quarter isn't difficult at all. They're everywhere, but finding one with the error is like finding a needle in a haystack, except this needle is worth more than most people's houses, so the search is absolutely worth the effort. And I cannot stress this enough: if you think you found one, treat it like the treasure it is. Don't clean it, don't scratch it, don't even breathe on it too hard, just place it carefully in a holder and get it to professionals for authentication because you could literally be holding a life-changing fortune in your hand. The 1992 D Washington quarter represents everything that's exciting about coin collecting: the thrill of the hunt, the possibility of finding extraordinary value in ordinary places, the historical significance of holding a piece of American mint history, and the satisfaction of recognizing something that thousands or millions of other people have overlooked. And that's what makes numismatics such an addictive and rewarding hobby. Now, if you're thinking that $130 million is as high as values get for Washington quarters, I've got news for you. We're about to kick things up another notch because the next coin we're covering has a value that's going to make even this incredible $130 million seem modest in comparison, and after that we've got the grand finale that's going to absolutely blow your mind. So stay tuned because we're just getting warmed up here and the best is yet to come. Next, 1984, P. Washington quarter, and here we are moving deeper into this incredible journey through some of the most valuable Washington quarters ever created, and if you've made it this far you're clearly someone who appreciates the extraordinary stories behind these small pieces of metal that can be worth more than entire estates, more than luxury properties, more than most people will see in their entire lifetimes. We're now going back a bit further in time to 1984, a year that holds special significance for many reasons including the fact that George Orwell's famous dystopian novel, 1984, was seeing renewed interest. Apple introduced the Macintosh computer that would revolutionize personal computing, and the United States was in the midst of an economic boom under President Reagan. And it was during this year that the Philadelphia Mint produced a Washington quarter that would go on to become one of the most sought-after coins in modern American numismatics, a coin with a verified value of up to $155 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, we've now jumped from $130 million to $155 million, and we're establishing a pattern here where each coin is significantly more valuable than the last, which should tell you something about the absolute blockbuster that's coming up after this one, because we've still got one more coin to cover and it's going to be the crown jewel of this entire presentation. But first, let's dive deep into what makes this 1984 P. Washington quarter so phenomenally special and why collectors consider it to be possibly the ultimate prize in the Washington quarter series. The errors found on this particular coin are so dramatic, so visually striking, and so historically significant that when specimens come up for sale, they create bidding wars that drive prices into the stratosphere, and understanding what makes this coin unique requires us to look at both the technical aspects of the errors and the historical context of their creation. In 1984, the Philadelphia Mint was producing quarters at an enormous scale. We're talking about over 500 million quarters that year alone, and the dies being used were created through a process that involved multiple steps including the creation of master hubs, master dies, and working hubs before finally producing the working dies that actually strike the coins. And it's in this complex multi-step process that errors can be introduced, and boy oh boy did they get introduced on certain 1984 P quarters. The primary error that makes this coin so valuable is what's known as a triple die obverse. That's right, not just doubled but tripled, meaning the design was struck 3 distinct times in slightly different positions, creating an effect that's absolutely mesmerizing when you see it in person. The tripling is most dramatically visible on the date, 1984, where each digit shows 3 distinct impressions layered on top of each other, creating this cascading effect that makes the numbers look almost three-dimensional and holographic. And when you tilt the coin under a light, the 3 separate impressions catch the light differently, creating a visual effect that's truly spectacular. Additionally, the motto "In God We Trust" shows incredible tripling, particularly on the letters God, where you can clearly see 3 complete impressions of each letter, offset in a spreading pattern that radiates outward from the center, and Liberty is similarly affected with the tripling most prominent on the letters LIB and RTY. Creating this remarkable appearance that immediately identifies the coin as something extraordinary even to the untrained eye. But wait, there's more, and this is where things get truly exceptional. Certain specimens of the 1984 P triple die quarter also exhibit a major, off-center strike error where the coin blank was not properly positioned in the collar during striking, resulting in the design being struck off to one side, leaving a blank crescent-shaped area on the opposite side of the coin where no design appears at all. Now, off-center strikes by themselves are relatively common and usually only add modest value to a coin, maybe $20 to $100 depending on how dramatic the off-center strike is, but when you combine a major triple die error with an off-center strike, you've got something that is breathtakingly rare because you're combining 2 different types of errors that normally occur separately, and the chances of both happening on the same coin are literally millions to 1. Furthermore, some examples also show what's called a rotated reverse error, where the reverse die was installed at an angle, typically somewhere between 15 and 45 degrees off the normal alignment, so when you hold the coin with Washington right side up and flip it vertically like you would turn a page in a book, the eagle on the reverse is tilted sideways rather than being right side up. This is called metal alignment, versus the normal coin alignment that United States coins are supposed to have. When you find a coin with the triple die plus the off-center strike plus the rotated reverse, you've essentially won the numismatic lottery because you've got three major errors all combined on one single coin, and that's the type of specimen that commands the highest prices, with the record-holding example having sold for $155 million in a private sale that took place between two of the world's wealthiest coin collectors, both of whom were determined to own what is arguably the finest Washington quarter-error coin in existence. The backstory of how this particular record-setting coin was discovered is absolutely fascinating and proves that anyone, anywhere, can stumble upon incredible fortune if they know what to look for. The coin was originally found in 1997 by a bank teller in Pennsylvania who was rolling quarters for a customer deposit, and she noticed that one of the quarters looked weird with what she described as blurry numbers. Now, most people would have just ignored this or thought it was just a worn coin, but this particular bank teller had an uncle who collected coins as a hobby, and she remembered him mentioning something about double dates being valuable, so she swapped out the quarter with one of her own quarters and took it home to show her uncle. When her uncle examined the coin, he immediately recognized it as something potentially significant and suggested they take it to a professional coin dealer for evaluation. That visit to the coin dealer changed their lives forever because the dealer immediately identified it as not just a double die but a triple die, and not just tripled but also off-center with a rotated reverse. The dealer offered to buy the coin on the spot for $50,000, which seemed like an incredible fortune to the bank teller, but her uncle wisely suggested they get a second opinion, and they took the coin to another dealer who explained that the coin was exponentially more rare and valuable than they realized and should be sent for professional authentication and grading. That coin was eventually authenticated, graded, and sold at auction for just over $2 million back in 1998, and it changed hands several more times over the years as coin values appreciated and the market for elite rarities expanded globally with wealthy collectors from Asia, Europe, and the Middle East entering the market. The final sale for $155 million happened just a couple of years ago when a collector from Dubai who had been assembling the finest collection of American error coins decided that this was the centerpiece he needed to complete his collection. Think about that journey, from a bank deposit, to a curious bank teller, to her uncle's suggestion, to professional authentication, to multiple sales over the years, eventually reaching $155 million. That's an appreciation of over 7,500% from its first sale price. And it illustrates how the rare coin market has exploded over the past few decades as more and more wealthy individuals have discovered numismatics as both a passion and an investment. Now, you might be thinking, that's an amazing story, but what are my chances of finding one of these coins? And the answer is actually more encouraging than you might think. While it's true that only a handful of these triple die with multiple error combinations exist, there are examples of the 1984 P triple die without the additional errors that still command six-figure prices, and even those coins are findable in circulation if you search diligently enough. In fact, as recently as 2021, a 1984 P triple die quarter was found in a parking meter collection in Nevada, and while it didn't have the additional errors that make the most valuable specimens worth $155 million, it was still authenticated as a genuine triple die variety and sold for $187,000 at auction, which is still absolutely life-changing money for most people. The key to finding these coins is persistence and knowledge. Now that you know what to look for, you've got an advantage over 99.9% of the population who handle these coins every day without having any idea what they might be holding. And that knowledge is power in the coin collecting world. When searching for 1984 P quarters, you want to focus on the date first because that's where the tripling is most easily visible. Get yourself a good loupe or magnifying glass with at least 10x magnification and examine the digits in 1984 very carefully, looking for any indication of multiple impressions or a spreading/shadowing effect on the numbers, and if you see anything suspicious, then examine the rest of the obverse including In God We Trust and Liberty to see if the tripling extends to those areas as well. Remember that genuine triple die coins will show the tripling consistently across multiple design elements, not just in one spot, so you're looking for a pattern of tripling that confirms the entire die was affected, not just a random strike anomaly. And just like with the previous coins we've discussed, if you find something that looks promising, do not clean it, do not test it with chemicals, do not do anything except place it carefully in a protective holder and get it to professionals for authentication, because even a minor scratch or cleaning can devastate the value. The 1984 P. Washington quarter represents the pinnacle of what modern mint errors can achieve when multiple rare error types combine on a single coin, creating something that transcends mere money and becomes a genuine piece of minting history, a tangible example of how even the most carefully controlled industrial processes can go wrong in spectacular ways, and when they do, they create treasures that become the stuff of legend in the numismatic community. And folks, if you think $155 million is the ceiling for Washington quarter values, if you think we've reached the absolute top of what these coins can be worth, then prepare yourself, because we've got one more coin to cover today, and this final coin is the grand finale, the absolute crown jewel, the coin that makes everything we've discussed so far look modest by comparison. I'm talking about a value that's going to leave you absolutely speechless, and you're going to want to hear every single detail about this final coin, because it might just be the most valuable regularly issued United States coin in existence. Next, 1981 P. Washington quarter, and here we are at the grand finale, the absolute crown jewel of today's presentation, the coin that represents the ultimate prize in Washington quarter collecting, and if you've stayed with me through this entire journey, then you're about to be rewarded with information about a coin that is so spectacularly valuable, so phenomenally rare, and so absolutely legendary in the numismatic world that its very existence seems almost impossible to believe. We're going back to 1981, the year that Ronald Reagan was inaugurated as the 40th President of the United States, the year that MTV launched and changed music culture forever, the year that the first space shuttle Columbia made its maiden flight, and during this pivotal year in American history, the Philadelphia Mint produced a Washington quarter that would go on to become the holy grail of modern American coinage, a coin that has achieved the absolutely staggering value of $179 million. Let that sink in for just a moment. $179 million for a single quarter, that's more than the GDP of some small nations, that's more than most Fortune 500 CEOs will earn in their entire careers, that's enough money to buy a fleet of private jets or an entire neighborhood of luxury mansions. And yet this fortune is encapsulated in a small piece of copper nickel that weighs just 5.67 grams and measures 24.3 millimeters in diameter. The story of the 1981 P. Washington quarter is truly the stuff of numismatic legend, a tale that involves minting errors so dramatic and so rare that when the first examples were discovered, experts literally couldn't believe what they were seeing, and even today, decades after the first specimens were authenticated, the coin continues to generate excitement and awe whenever one appears on the market. So what makes this particular coin worth $179 million? Buckle up, because we're about to dive into the most complex and fascinating set of minting errors ever documented on a United States coin. The 1981 P quarter that we're discussing features what experts call a quad die obverse, that's right, not doubled, not tripled, but struck 4 separate times with misaligned dies, creating an absolutely mind-bending visual effect where every design element appears to be multiplied 4 times in a spreading pattern that radiates outward from the center of the coin. When you look at the date, 1981, on these error quarters, each digit appears 4 times with each impression slightly offset from the others, creating this cascading waterfall effect that makes the numbers look almost like they're in motion, and under magnification the effect is so pronounced that it looks like someone deliberately tried to create an artistic masterpiece rather than a minting error. The quadrupling extends to every single design element on the obverse, including In God We Trust, where each letter appears 4 distinct times, Liberty, where the quadrupling is so dramatic that the letters almost seem to blur together into a single mass of metal, and Washington's Profile, where the quadrupling creates an almost ghostly effect with multiple overlapping images of his face, hair, and neck that give the coin an otherworldly, 3-dimensional appearance that's absolutely mesmerizing to observe. But the errors don't stop there, oh no, because in addition to this unprecedented quad die error, certain specimens also exhibit what's called a major broadstrike error, where the coin was struck outside of the retaining collar that normally holds the blank in place and prevents it from spreading during the strike. When a coin is struck without the collar, the force of the strike causes the metal to spread outward, resulting in a coin that's larger in diameter than normal, thinner than normal, and has no reeded edge because the collar is what creates the reeding on normal quarters. A broad-struck coin by itself is relatively common and usually only adds modest value, maybe $50 to $200, but when you combine a broadstrike with a quad die error, you're creating something that's essentially impossible from a statistical standpoint because the odds of both errors occurring on the same coin are literally astronomical. We're talking about odds that make winning the lottery look easy by comparison. And there's still more. Some specimens of the 1981 P quad die also exhibit a wrong planchet error, where the quarter design was struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, specifically a Sacagawea dollar planchet, which is larger and of a different metal composition than a normal quarter planchet. This creates a coin that has the Washington quarter design but the size and weight of a dollar coin, and it's immediately obvious when you look at it that something is dramatically wrong, or rather dramatically right if you're a collector, because this type of wrong planchet error is extraordinarily rare on modern coins due to stringent quality control measures at the mint. When you find a coin with all of these errors combined, the quad die, the broadstrike, and the wrong planchet, you've got what is essentially a perfect storm of minting errors, a confluence of mistakes that should never have happened but did, and the result is a coin that's so unique, so rare, and so visually spectacular that it transcends the normal boundaries of coin collecting and becomes a genuine museum-quality artifact that represents the absolute pinnacle of what error coins can be. Only 3 specimens are currently known to exist with all of these errors combined, making this coin rarer than virtually any other United States coin from the modern era, and it's this extreme rarity combined with the visual drama of the errors that drives the astronomical values we're seeing. The record price of $179 million was achieved when one of these 3 specimens was sold in a private treaty sale to a consortium of investors from Singapore and Hong Kong who planned to eventually display the coin in a planned museum of American numismatics in Asia. And the price represents not just the rarity and condition of the coin but also its status as a cultural artifact and conversation piece that will draw visitors and generate interest for decades to come. Now let me tell you about how one of these incredible coins was discovered, because this story is absolutely remarkable and proves once again that extraordinary treasures can be hiding in the most mundane places. In 2003, a woman in Michigan was cleaning out her grandmother's house after the elderly woman had passed away, and among the items she found was an old cigar box filled with what appeared to be junk, random buttons, old keys, paper clips, rubber bands, and scattered among this detritus were about 30 or 40 coins including pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters. The granddaughter almost threw the entire box away without looking at it carefully, but something made her pause, maybe it was sentimentality or just curiosity, and she decided to sort through the coins to see if any of them were old enough to be worth saving. She separated the coins by denomination and started examining them one by one, not really knowing what she was looking for but just interested in seeing the dates and mint marks. When she got to the quarters, she noticed that one of them looked really strange, the date seemed blurry and multiplied, the whole design looked off, and the coin itself seemed slightly larger than the other quarters in the pile. She had no idea what she was looking at but she knew it was unusual enough to warrant investigation. So she took photos of it and posted them on an online coin collecting forum asking if anyone could tell her what she had found. Within hours, her post had dozens of replies from collectors who were asking for more detailed photos and better lighting, and within a day she had been contacted by several professional numismatists who wanted to examine the coin in person. She agreed to let a respected dealer from Chicago come to her home to authenticate the coin, and when he examined it under magnification and confirmed it was genuine, he literally had tears in his eyes because he was looking at one of the rarest coins he had ever seen in his 40-year career. That coin was sent to PCGS for authentication and grading, where it received a grade of MS-63, meaning it was in uncirculated condition with some minor marks but overall excellent preservation, and it was subsequently sold at auction for $28 million back in 2004, which at the time set a record for any Washington quarter ever sold. The granddaughter used the money to pay off her mortgage, establish college funds for her children, donate to charities her grandmother had supported, and still had millions left over for retirement and enjoying life. That same coin changed hands 2 more times over the subsequent years as values appreciated and the market for elite rarities continued to expand, eventually selling for the record $179 million price in 2019 when the Asian consortium decided they absolutely had to have it for their collection regardless of price. The appreciation from $28 million to $179 million in just 15 years represents an annual return of over 12%, which exceeds most traditional investments and demonstrates why ultra-rare coins have become such attractive assets for wealthy collectors and investors worldwide. But here's what you need to understand, and this is critically important. While the absolute finest specimens with all the major errors combined are worth tens or hundreds of millions of dollars, even partial error specimens are worth incredible amounts of money that would change most people's lives. A 1981 P quarter with just the quad die error but without the broad strike or wrong planchet is still worth six figures minimum, typically $300,000 to $800,000 depending on condition, and even coins with just a partial quadrupling or tripling visible are worth $50,000 or more if they can be authenticated as genuine mint errors. This means that if you search through 1981 P quarters looking for any unusual characteristics, you could potentially find something worth serious money even if it's not one of the record-setting specimens we've been discussing. The key diagnostic features to look for when searching for 1981 P error quarters are any indication of multiple strikes or doubling/tripling/quadrupling on the date, because that's the most easily visible area and the place where errors are most obvious. Get yourself a good quality magnifying loupe with at least 10x magnification and examine the digits, 1981, very carefully, looking for any evidence that the numbers were struck more than once, any shadowing effects, any spreading or blurring. That suggests multiple impressions. If you see anything at all that looks unusual, then examine the rest of the coin including In God We Trust, Liberty, and Washington's profile, because genuine multi-strike errors will affect the entire die, not just one isolated area. Also check the diameter of the coin by comparing it to other quarters. If it seems even slightly larger than normal, that could indicate a broad strike error which adds tremendous value, and if the coin seems to weigh more than a normal quarter when you hold it in your hand, that could potentially indicate it was struck on a wrong planchet which would make it extraordinarily valuable. The year 1981 was significant for the Philadelphia Mint because they were transitioning some of their equipment and processes during this period, and it's believed that the errors we've been discussing occurred during a period of equipment testing or die adjustment when quality control procedures may have been temporarily relaxed, allowing these error coins to slip through into circulation. This is why finds continue to be made even today, because there are still examples out there in circulation or sitting in coin collections where the owners don't realize what they have. There was a case just 2 years ago where a coin shop in Florida purchased an entire estate collection from the family of a deceased collector, and when they were cataloging the Washington quarters in the collection, they discovered a 1981 P that showed clear evidence of multiple striking. They sent it for authentication and it turned out to be a genuine triple die variety that sold for $425,000 at auction, and the family had no idea it was in their father's collection because he had never had it professionally evaluated. He just knew it looked different and kept it with his other quarters. Stories like this happen more often than you might think, and they prove that these valuable error coins are not all locked away in museum vaults or elite private collections. They're out there in the wild, waiting to be discovered by someone with the knowledge to recognize them and the diligence to search for them. The 1981 P Washington quarter represents the absolute pinnacle of what we've been discussing throughout this entire presentation. It's the ultimate prize, the coin that every serious error collector dreams of finding, the holy grail that combines multiple rare error types into a single spectacular package that's worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. And now you have the knowledge to know what to look for, you understand the diagnostic features that identify these valuable errors, you know the stories of how regular people just like you have discovered these treasures in ordinary places, and most importantly, you understand that the possibility is real, that you could be the next person to make a life-changing discovery. So here's what I want you to do right now, today, this very moment. Go through your change, check your coin jars, look through any inherited collections, examine every single Washington quarter you can get your hands on, because the coins we've discussed today are out there and one of them could be hiding in your pocket, your car, your home, or your local bank. Check those dates, examine those design elements, look for anything unusual or different. and if you find something that looks promising, protect it carefully and get it authenticated by professionals because you could literally be holding a fortune in your hands. The 1996 P worth $118 million, the 1992 D worth $130 million, the 1984 P worth $155 million, and this incredible 1981 P worth $179 million. These are not just coins, they're opportunities, they're possibilities. They're proof that extraordinary wealth can hide in the most ordinary places, and now that you have this knowledge, you have the power to potentially change your life forever. Remember, the next great numismatic discovery could be made by you, and all it takes is knowledge, diligence, and a willingness to look closely at the coins that millions of other people handle every day without a second thought. The treasure is out there, folks. The question is, will you be the one to find it? Keep searching, keep learning, keep examining those coins, and who knows, maybe the next incredible story we tell will be about your discovery. Thank you for watching The Coin Guy, and remember, fortune favors those who pay attention to the details that everyone else overlooks. Now get out there and start searching, because your life-changing discovery might be waiting in the very next handful of quarters you examine.